Hello everyone, welcome to the Scumdog's Kennel. I'm your host, Chris Williams, and in today's Cryptid Corner mini episode, folks, we have a couple of bizarre stories. One involving this angel returning this guy's dog, and another, Mothman account from Chicago, this time from Lincoln Park Zoo. Both accounts are truly interesting, folks, but let's get into them now and we can read all about them. Let's read the first one. The dog angel. A midnight visitor returned my dog, then vanished without a trace. Let's get into the article now by reading the opening. An unexpected knock on the door at the stroke of midnight, delivering a missing dog and raising questions that only deepen the longer you think about them. The mysterious man who appeared out of the darkness seemed to know exactly where to go, yet nothing about him made sense once he walked away into the night. Let's read the real account now, folks, in its entirety. This happened in the early 1980s. I believe I had a beautiful black Labrador named Max, and I lived near the Gathery Theater in Minneapolis. In a nice neighborhood on a hill, one morning I let Max outside and he took off, not returning as usual. Okay, folks. The Gather Theater in Minneapolis, I think. Or is it Gathery? I'm not quite sure, folks. Let's just say it's Gathery. Either way, I'm not surprised that this took place near a theater, folks. There have been numerous stories that we've read about where people have encountered paranormal phenomena in theaters. Maybe this was a ghost or something that inhabited the theater and then returned this guy's dog, perhaps? Well, maybe. Either way, let's read on and then we can decide for ourselves. It was a holiday, either Christmas or Thanksgiving, and we needed to go over to my mother's house for brunch. I searched for Max but couldn't find him, so we went to my mom's. When we returned in the afternoon, I drove around looking for him again, but still had no luck. That night, we went to bed feeling like he might never come back. We had a grandfather clock that chimed on the hour, and at midnight, I heard a knock at the door, followed by the doorbell. I got dressed and went downstairs. There stood a man in a long overcoat and a big hat, holding Max on a leash. I exclaimed, "Oh, that's Max," he replied. Yeah, I found him," mumbling and avoiding eye contact. Well, that's very strange, folks. Do you suppose there's a reason why this entity didn't want to make eye contact with this man? It almost feels like he was avoiding eye contact because this, let's say entity didn't want to have this man realize exactly who he really was, perhaps. It almost feels like a time travel story where basically the guy travels to the past and does something, but realizes he doesn't want anyone to, realize who he actually is. That kind of gives me the feeling here, folks. But there's also the fact that this man is dressed in a long, I would dare say, black overcoat and big black hat. Really reminds me of, the Shadow, this superhero from basically, the 30s and 40s pulp magazines and stuff like that. But that's just me, folks. It just feels that way to me. Either way, let's continue with this article, folks. Curious, I asked him where he found Max, and he said he was across Hennepin Avenue. I then questioned how he found my house, to which he replied, he led me back here. I offered him some money or a reward, but he declined, unhooked Max from the leash, and handed him back to me. I referred to him as the dog angel. The man then turned and walked down the steps, disappearing into the night. It struck me as very strange that this happened at midnight. I wondered how Max crossed Hennepin Avenue without being hit by a car, and how this man went out looking for the owner of a dog at that hour. He never looked at me directly, and I never saw his face, which added to the oddness of the situation. That's why I call him the dog angel A. Well, I have to say, folks, that A here encountered a very good soul. Maybe it really was an angel, folks, but as I said, the way he was dressed really reminds me of basically the Shadow from basically, various media and stuff like that. You know, the Shadow, who also goes by the guy who constantly says, "Who knows the evil that lurks in the hearts of men?" The Shadow. That's the guy, folks. Either way, unlike that character, folks, this guy, while not warm, he definitely basically would go out of his way to basically help a guy get his dog back. Maybe the actual Shadow would do so as well, folks, and not go around basically just shooting criminals basically in the face, which is what the Shadow usually does. Either way, very interesting story, folks. But now, everyone, let's move on to the next article. Massive winged humanoid soars above Lincoln Park Zoo during evening outing in Chicago. Now, let's read this next article detailing another Mothman encounter in Chicago, folks, and hear all about it. On a warm September evening in 2017, families enjoying the Lincoln Park Zoo were interrupted by a sudden commotion that rippled through the crowd. Moments later, witnesses watched in disbelief as a towering winged humanoid skimmed the treetops, vanished toward North Avenue Beach. The encounter added yet another layer to a summer already marked by unexplained aerial sightings across Chicago. Indeed it did, folks, because people have been seeing Mothman now in Chicago for the past 10 years or so, or even more. Either way, let's continue and read the full account now. I took my family out to the Lincoln Park Zoo on Thursday, September 7th, 2017 at about 4 p.m. Central Time. We stayed until around 7 p.m. Central Time and enjoyed being outside in the perfect weather. After the zoo closed at about 5 p.m. Central Time, we played ball, and enjoyed the afternoon. As we were leaving, we heard a commotion from a group of people about 20 yards away. We looked in the general direction of the commotion and saw people pointing up toward the sky. We looked up to see a large creature with a giant set of wings flying over us, barely skimming the treetops. We saw it for about 5 seconds as it circled the trees, then disappeared, heading in the general direction of North Avenue Beach. Was this another Mothman encounter, folks? It generally does sound like it now, doesn't it? Now, for the past, as I said, 10 or more years, folks, people have been seeing Mothman. But was this really what the entity was, folks? Was it possibly a demon? Or something else? We just simply don't know. It could be a cryptoterrestrial, extraterrestrial, and we still have no real idea what these entities are. But as usual, folks, we can talk about this later after we finish off this article. It looked human-like, but had a large pair of wings that must have been at least 12 feet wide, if I had to guess, and looked a lot like bat wings. It was solid black, with no discernible features, but you could tell it had arms, legs, and a head. Though they looked very skinny, it was flapping its wings repeatedly and appeared to be gaining speed. After it disappeared, someone in the crowd said that there had been multiple sightings of this thing all summer long. That is why I got online. I looked up these sightings and reported them on your website. I do want to note that when the commotion started and for a few minutes afterwards, many of the animals in the zoo were clearly disturbed and vocalizing as if something had upset them. There was no further sighting or strange occurrences for the rest of the night, and we ended up going home. I'm not surprised about that, folks. Sometimes these things just do end. But, folks, all I can say so far, that was a bizarre story. There's also some commentary on this article, I think maybe with a little more information. So, let's read that now as well, folks. This report fits closely with a cluster of 2017 sightings involving a dark, bat-winged humanoid flying over Chicago's parks, lakefront, and north side neighborhoods. The witness describes a skinny, human-shaped figure with an approximate 12-foot wingspan, consistent with dozens of sightings from the same season. Notably, the mention of agitated zoo animals is significant since several Chicago cases include reports of unusual animal reactions or periods of silence preceding, a sighting. The direction of travel toward North Avenue Beach also corresponds with other flyover reports from that summer, suggesting a possible route or territory. The nature of the entity remains undetermined, though its consistency across witnesses suggests either a cryptid of unknown origin, an ultra-terrestrial intelligence briefly intersecting with our own reality, or an interdimensional presence moving along energetic pathways near Lake Michigan. Perhaps, folks. And the fact that this did take place near Lake Michigan, a large body of water, is very significant because it's been noted before, folks, as I've said, that, UFOs have been noted going into large bodies of water, either lakes or rivers, but especially the ocean, folks. So, the fact that this entity was seen flying near Lake Michigan, I'm not surprised. Maybe there's something to it. But, folks, what are these entities and why are they here? We still have no idea, but maybe one day we will. But now, everyone, we're at the end, so please go subscribe to my YouTube channel, Read Comics That Are Bad For You. You can use the YouTube link down below in the descriptions or the chat to go subscribe me. Hit that like button for me. Make sure you're still subscribed. Leave some comments down below. Hit that bell for notifications. Make sure to hit the part of the bell. That'll give you all future notifications, and please share this video out. I'm Chris Williams from the Scumdogs Kennel. Thank you all for joining me. I'll be back again tomorrow with another great video, so be sure to come back again then. Till next time, folks. I'll see you all again soon.